So this is the full in-depth review of the new Callaway Rogue Sub-Zero driver. This is brand new for 2018. I've had this driver in my golf bag for the last 2 weeks. I have tested it on GC Quad over 3 different days, and not only that, I've taken it out on the golf course to give you my full in-depth review of the Callaway Rogue Sub-Zero driver. I have just done the standard Rogue, and the Sub-Zero offers some slight different adjustabilities and a completely different head shape. What it does still feature is new JAILBREAK, so hourglass JAILBREAK now, so next generation. And because of that, they've managed to make the face thinner and faster, is what Callaway are claiming. And then they've got the same Sub-Zero settings where you can move the weight from front to back. I'm going to test this and I'm going to share with you my findings compared to my optimal performance range with driver. Also tell you a little bit about what I found out on the golf course, and then really answer your questions about this driver, and then give it the final conclusion of the Callaway Sub-Zero Rogue driver. Okay, so let's dive through the data of the Rogue Sub-Zero and also talk to you what I found out on the golf course as well. The first thing I want to mention, this golf club behind the ball sits wonderfully well. To my eye, it just is gorgeous. I really like how it's a little bit more condensed size. Even though it's 460cc, the way it's been squashed and kind of engineered, it has such a rounded shape to it, and it is such a good club when you put it down behind the ball. For me, sits square to slightly open. And one thing I did notice, it does sit quite kind of flat. The line angle is quite flat on this, and I'll explain to you what I discovered with this as I did the testing. So I think that helped with the performance of particularly that driver for me. To give you some ideas, I had the weights, I mixed them around, and I tried to have the weight forward and back, and I found that the weight in the back was the best setting for me. I'm going to show you that in a moment. And the weight in the Sub-Zero Rogue is slightly heavier than the Epic Sub-Zero. So the Epic came in a 12 gram weight and a 2 gram weight, where now the Rogue comes in a 14 gram weight and a 2 gram weight. So effectively the movable centre of gravity is actually more severe, a little bit more deeper because that weight is slightly heavier. So I had the weight in the back for these numbers I'm going to show you now, and I kept everything else in neutral 9-degree head, and I continued with this even flow shaft, the Project X, in the 6.5 X 75 grams. So let's have a look at the numbers that I was getting from Rogue over the 3 different days of testing on GC Quad using Pro V1s. What you see up on screen there now is my optimal driver range. That's all the products that I tested over the last 12 months, and that's where I like to see my driver performance sit. And we see here now, these are the Sub-Zero numbers coming up on the screen. So if I'm honest, absolutely hitting the criteria perfectly, and some of them actually over and above what I expected. We look at ball speed at 162.2. That fits exactly where it should do in that spectrum. Nothing massively outstanding, but certainly not low in that ball speed. It was in the high side, which is great. Launch angle a little bit high at 14.5, but nothing too serious. And the spin rate with the weight back, I was getting 2,356. I'll show you the weight forward spin rates and numbers in a moment. So just a tiny bit on the high side. I didn't mind that for me, for my club head speed. I like to see around 2,200, but I mean, we're talking 100 RPM, it's nothing, it's not noticeable. Descent angle was good, height was great, a little bit higher than what I normally see, but a really good flight. And the carry distance there was actually higher than what I normally see with my carry distances for driver. And that was 287 yards of carry distance, and this is an average over all the shots. And I was getting 306 total distance. So the numbers on carry are outstanding. And I actually put that more down to the club head speed I was producing. My club head speed is normally 112, where with the Sub-Zero I was getting 113.8. Now, I think that's to do a little bit with the fact that the profile of the head looks really good and very inviting for me to hit. So I felt like I could swing it fast. And maybe, and I'm only saying maybe, these speed steps might have a very small influence on increasing that club head speed, but it's very difficult to measure. But if I'm honest, over 3 different days of testing, you know, and my club head speed was consistently over my average. There's got to be something in that. That is not just coincidence. There's got to be something within that. Over a week period of testing on 3 different days, the average swing speed stayed high. Smash factor was up there at 1.43, and then the rest of the numbers you can see there are pretty much standard. So angle of attack, my path, my face open. The only one number that I wanted to highlight to you was the lie angle. So typically with a driver, just a standard driver, I present about 4.5 degrees toe up. With the Rogue Sub-Zero driver, I was actually only presenting 1 degree toe up. And that for me, I think helped with the performance of the flight I was seeing out on the golf course. For me, it was way straighter or slightly tailing to the right, which is a shot I love to see. So I was excited. Got it on the golf course. And I honestly, the back nine, I played at Sawgrass with the back nine, I hit some of the best drives I've ever hit. And I mean that. Controlled, flights were great, power was great, everything was just on it. The 11th hole was a tee shot. I actually caught it a little bit low in the heel. And this came out low but faded and found the fairway, which is a good result for a bad hit. And then literally 12th hole, hit one bullet straight. 14th hole, it was perfect drive. 15th hole, it required a little fade around the corner. I pulled it off to perfection. 16th hole, I needed to hit a little draw, and I did. You know, it's kind of ticking every criteria. Until the 18th hole, and I was feeling quite cocky. So I decided to chew a little bit more of the corner off than I could have done, and unfortunately I dunked it in the water. But it wasn't a bad shot. I just tried to take on too much. And if I'm honest, I only did that because I was feeling pretty confident. My first feelings as I couldn't hit this left, and that for me as a driver is a win straight away because I love the fact I didn't hit this to the left. I found that it was a really straight ball flight or a slight fade if I needed to, and that as a Sub-Zero model, and this is where I see the big difference between this and the Rogue model, really did suit my eye and suit my ball flight, and the way I hit it was just, honestly, it was on the money. I love the sound of it, I love the flight of it, and it so much reminds me of my Epic that I used for a long time. I used the Sub-Zero Epic. That driver and this driver just hit every single tick box for me. So out on the golf course it performed. I also played with it on the front nine at Reunion. I didn't hit every shot perfect. This was the example on the second hole where I actually caught this off more towards the toe, and this pulled to the left and actually, nearly ended up seriously in trouble. And the fourth hole then straight into wind, and I hit this absolute bullet straight flight into wind. The wind didn't touch it at all. I was really impressed with the performance into wind. Fifth hole was a really tight tee shot. And again, because I was feeling confident, I pulled driver out the back when honestly, not many times would I have pulled driver down on 5. At this golf course I was playing in the US and absolutely smashed it down there. So for me, testing out on the golf course was a huge success. I felt like when I hit it good, it was an unbelievable rocket. I could hit it straight or slightly fade it off to the right, which really suits my eye a lot. I would say off-centered hits, it was not as forgiving as the Rogue driver. I did find myself more in punishing situations when I didn't hit it off the center, but that's understandable because it is a smaller head, it is a lower spin setting. So going back to these weights, I actually flipped the weights just to see what that weight looks like in the forward position. And now that weight is heavier, I wanted to see if it had more of an influence. And if I'm honest, it absolutely does. So these are my numbers with Sub-Zero with the weight, the 14 gram weight forward. We see ball speed still great, we see launch angle still great, but the spin rate, this now dropped below that 2000 threshold. And that for me, when it starts dropping below that 2000 threshold, even though some of the shots are exceptional, some of them just drop out of the sky. So this is the 9th shot that I tested with the weight forward, and this literally, had a 1200 RPM spin and just dropped out the sky. Just you couldn't perform with low spin like that. So for me, and the numbers were good when I got it, 288 carry for 309, so the numbers were actually slightly better. But I felt with the weight forward, because it was so much more weight going forward, the central gravity further forward, I found it actually harder to control, and I saw shots that just completely nosedive out the sky. But some golfers are going to like that fact they can move the weight further forward. But for me, that 12 gram to 2 gram ratio might just be a little bit too much. I think the 12 gram to 2 gram ratio from the Epic Sub-Zero was probably a slightly better fit. And truth be told, you could probably just switch the 14 out and stick a 12 in there, or even a 10. So you got options there as well, but that was me just testing these two weights in its current setting. So performance, numbers-wise, were great. Out on the golf course was really good. Kind of full marks so far. Let's answer some of your questions and give it a conclusion of the Sub-Zero Rogue driver. So to answer your questions around the Rogue driver, and similar to the standard Rogue driver, is really the big question was, is this any better than the Epic Sub-Zero? I think Callaway have been clever this year in the fact that they're saying Rogue does not replace Epic. But truth be told, it does. I just think they're saying that because if you are an Epic owner, you don't want to know that a new club is kind of replacing it. So I think Epic will just see fizzle off into the distance as Rogue comes into more of a prominent position. But the question is Rogue any better, certainly Rogue Sub-Zero, any better than Epic Sub-Zero? Now, you might know I was a big fan of Epic Sub-Zero. As much as I hated the name and didn't particularly like the colour, that's similar to this. I don't like the colour. I don't mind the name on Rogue. Performance-wise, I honestly saw next to no difference. And I mean that. Almost next to no difference at all. The only thing that I could possibly pick up on, and I'm being, if I really looked into it, is I think the shaping of the Rogue when looking behind the ball, for my eye, is slightly better. I just think it sits a little bit more open to square, and I love the fact that the back of the club is a little bit more rounded. Even though the top design is very similar, I think it just sits to my eye just that little bit better. And if anything, it just sounds that fraction more dead. So when you hit the Rogue, it just has that little bit more of a deader, denser sound when you actually hit it. But we're talking a $500 driver or a £480 driver. And really, if you've got Sub-Zero Epic, are you going to move into this? No, you're not. Absolutely not. Because unless you detest Epic and the colour green so much, and you want more Rogue with this teal, there is literally no difference. And that's from not only testing, but also for someone who used Epic Sub-Zero for a long time with good success with that driver. I liked it a lot. To move into this, I just don't think you're going to see a big difference. The only thing you're seeing difference here is that it comes standard now with a 14 gram weight rather than 12. So there's a little bit more flippable adjustability. But once you flipped it into the weight position, that's about it. I feel like the line glue slightly changed with the Rogue driver, which gives it a little bit more fade biased. And certainly for a better player, that's kind of maybe what they're after a little bit more, that kind of fadey slash, finding the fairway and finding it working out for them a little bit more. But it is so close to Epic. It really is. It is so close. I can't make enough of a separation to make that justification of a $500 step up into the Rogue driver. So for me, if you've got Epic, stay with Epic. You might want to test it, but I really don't think you're going to see a huge difference in performance at all. So, conclusion time. The first question is, would I put this driver in my bag? And I think you're going to guess the answer to this. Yes, I would put this driver in my bag without question. And I think I will do. Maybe the 12 gram weight instead of the 14 gram weight, but that's the only thing I would change. I just found it very comfortable to hit. I love the flight. I love the performance. The numbers were great, stacked up brilliantly. The colour, as much as I'm not blown away by it, it's growing on me slightly, this kind of bluey teal colour. I think that was a big mistake making it that colour, truth be told. I think they will isolate some golfers from even trying it with it being in that colour. But for me, the performance sits great. I think they're really on something with this jailbreak. Obviously, they've kept it in 2 years now down the line. The new face, I don't think it does a great deal for extra ball speed, truth be told. But I felt like I could swing it fast, whether that was speed steps or whether that was just the shaping of the head. I was definitely picking up ball speed. I was definitely picking up distance. And for me, I was getting the ball flight that I love to see with a driver. Yeah. So it hits every box for me. So you might see Rogue getting in the bag anytime soon. That was my full in-depth review of the Callaway Rogue Sub-Zero driver. If you've not seen the standard video, go and check it out on my channel. It's already up there. I'm not going to do one of the draw driver because I just think that would not suit me. But if I can get a golfer that kind of suits, maybe we can get a draw driver review out there at some point as well. But I think we know the conclusions of that pretty much. So guys, that was the full review. If you're new to my channel, hit that subscribe button. If you like the video, please drop it a like and comment below what you think of the new review style. Thanks for watching, guys. Stay tuned, lots more to come. And that was my full review of the Callaway Rogue Sub-Zero driver.